Hey guys, let's get more news about Miami Heat, but first, don't forget to subscribe and leave your like. Insider reveals why Jimmy Butler hasn't been traded yet. It's been several weeks since Jimmy Butler officially requested a trade from the Miami Heat. But since that news broke, we haven't seen any real movement to create a deal that would give Butler a new home in the NBA. According to Shams Charania, per NBA Central, that's because Heat president Pat Riley doesn't feel any sort of urgency to make a trade. Charania wrote, "The Heat have engaged with multiple teams on Butler trade scenarios and have received offers but have been hesitant to negotiate further," sources said. Riley has not shown an urgency in these talks, as the trade deadline looms on February 6, sources added. This news confirms that other teams are looking to get Butler, but the Heat aren't willing to do much right now. Numerous teams have been reportedly linked to Butler, including the Golden State Warriors, Phoenix Suns, Houston Rockets, and Memphis Grizzlies. But beyond speculation, nothing substantial has come out of these rumors. What is causing Riley to drag his heels and prevent a Butler trade? Perhaps he hasn't seen any sort of offer that would be best for the Heat, or maybe he is just trying to make life hard for Butler. The Heat ultimately hold all the power in this situation. If a trade doesn't occur, Butler will violate his contract unless he plays. Even if he's unhappy, he will be forced to suit up or face severe fines from the league and hurt his trade value for the future. It sounds like Riley is willing to sit on his hands and not make any moves, and that means the rest of the season could be very complicated and uncomfortable for Butler and the rest of the Heat roster. NBA rumors, Celtics rival near breaking point with Jimmy Butler? Miami Heat forward Jimmy Butler isn't changing his mind anytime soon. The 35-year-old went from the topic of trade rumors to the recipient of a 7-game suspension from Miami due to conduct deemed detrimental. The Heat haven't found a solution amid the ongoing drama, and through it all, Butler has remained adamant about his stance, leaving the rest up to Miami's front office. Butler, perhaps impatient with the process, even took things a step further with the Heat. Sources say Jimmy Butler told Pat Riley to his face that he wants to be traded, that he will never again sign a contract in Miami, ESPN's Shams Charania reported Tuesday. And if he has to utilize his $52 million player option in the offseason, it will only be used as a trade maneuver. This all leads to the Heat facing a decision near the end of this week. Do you bring Jimmy Butler back to this team? Do you reach a trade for him? Do you find a settlement to continue to have him stay away from the team? Miami's presumed soon-to-be sour breakup with Butler sparked when ESPN's Christmas Day report revealed the 6-time All-Star wanted out and craved a trade either to the Dallas Mavericks, Phoenix Suns, Golden State Warriors or Houston Rockets. Butler has since doubled down on multiple instances, doing everything in his power to force Miami's hand and strike a deal. Story continues below. Advertisement inadvertently, a Butler trade could remove Miami's chances at mustering up its latest underdog run in the Eastern Conference. The Heat, currently 22-18, are in 7th place in the East and are just barely flirting with contention. Meanwhile, teams such as the Detroit Pistons, Atlanta Hawks, and Chicago Bulls sit directly in Miami's rearview mirror with 2.5 games separating the Heat from the number 7 seed and the number 10 seed. Butler, in his 6th season with the organization, is averaging 17.6 points, 5.5 rebounds, and 4.7 assists on 52.2% shooting from the field and 37.5% from three-point range. That's a more than serviceable level of production from Butler, which will surely generate interest from teams across the league looking to sneak into the playoffs and dethrone the reigning champion Celtics. It'll also allow Miami to avoid receiving zero compensation for Butler's departure and snag a potential consolation prize before Riley and the front office begin seeking newcomers to play alongside Bam Adebayo and Tyler Herro. Will Jimmy Butler force his way to the Suns? Phoenix Suns trade target Jimmy Butler is trying to make things more difficult for the Miami Heat. Ahead of the NBA trade deadline on February 6, Butler and the Suns have been directly linked, but the stubborn nature of the Godfather, Pat Riley, owner Mickey Arison and general manager/executive vice president of basketball operations Andy Ellisberg is making things difficult. But, let's remember this is about Butler, who seems to be willing to make things extremely nasty for the Heat front office if he does not get his way. ESPN's Shams Charania reported Tuesday that Butler reiterated his request for a trade to Riley, but don't get too optimistic for a trade right now. Via ESPN, Butler told Riley that he will not sign a new deal in Miami and that he intends to use his $52 million player option for 2025-26 in the offseason only as a trade maneuver, sources said, Charania wrote. Butler's 7-game, team-issued suspension from the Heat for what was termed detrimental conduct ends Thursday, at which point Miami will be faced with finding a path forward for Butler, with options including a return to the roster or a trade. Heat officials will meet later this week to discuss the best route with Butler, who requested a trade earlier this month, league sources said. Owner Mickey Arison is expected to also sit down with Butler later this week, league sources added. I like this frenetic pace that the NBA trade deadline is going at on a Tuesday. As the kids would say, the club is going up on a Tuesday. But let's be cautious and think about who we're dealing with here, per Jimmy Crowd. Riley is someone who will admit that he is maybe washed, but I would argue there is not a stronger man in terms of sheer conviction, right or wrong, in this league. Butler has made things ugly, and I think conversation would point out that Butler may have an edge here. After all, he is saying he will use his $52 million player option as a trade maneuver. The interesting part here, though, I will concur, is that coach Eric Spoelstra, players Tyler Herro and Bam Adebayo have spoken about finding clarity and eliminating the distraction of Butler's circumstances during his absence. The Heat are perfectly fine without their 35-year-old star on the court, and there's some credence to that in Riley's thinking, I'd assume. One issue that led to Butler's decision to request a trade, sources said, was an implication from team officials that he hadn't played his hardest in the Heat's victory over the Pelicans on New Year's Day. Butler had made clear to the Heat before his suspension that he planned to partake in team activities while his status is in limbo, sources said. The Suns kicked off the first of a 5-game road trip Tuesday against the Hawks. Meanwhile, Butler is turning this into a Miami-friendly television show that myself and others will have to be glued to find out the controversial end. And you, fan? What do you think of the situation of Jimmy Butler? Leave your opinion in the comments.